Good evening. On behalf of my fellow board members at the Old North Foundation, I would like to add our warmest welcome to you all. We are very, very grateful for your presence and support. Each year, the Lantern Ceremony remembers those ideals upon which our nation was founded and marks a moment when ideals were translated into action. And so, each year, the Old North Foundation works hard to identify a keynote speaker who we feel represents those values. We were overjoyed when Governor Charlie Baker accepted our invitation to be the Lantern speaker. Governor Baker's accomplishments in the public and private sector are well known. He served with distinction in the cabinets of both the Weld and Cellucci administrations. During his tenure as CEO of Harvard Pilgrim, Charlie Baker led that company out of a very challenging place to become the nation's highest-ranked healthcare provider. From the day he took office in January 2015, Governor Baker and his bipartisan administration have made it their goal to make Massachusetts a great place, a safe place, a place to learn, and a place to have opportunity for all of its citizens, young, old, fortunate, and less fortunate. This vision speaks to the vision of our nation's founders, whom we remember tonight. Accomplishment, talent, and vision are an impressive trio, but equally remarkable are the personal qualities of thoughtfulness, graciousness, and compassion, which Governor Baker also possesses. He asks questions, he listens, he works hard. He is a leader. And so it is my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce to you our Lantern speaker, the 72nd Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Governor Charlie Baker.
Good evening, everybody, and Catherine, let me just start by saying I'd like to take you with me and have you introduce me everywhere I go in the next 3 years. Let me first of all start by just thanking you all for being here and thanking the board, Reverend Ayers, Reverend Gates, the volunteers, and the parishioners of Old North Church for all that you do. My wife Lauren and I have been fortunate enough to come to this event, invited originally by the Matthews family as private citizens, and not simply as part of what I would describe as sort of the job of being a public official. And we were awed and charmed by this event, by the history it represents, and by the events that took place here in this church. Which, as you all know, 241 years ago today, Paul Revere left Boston for Charlestown for a ride that changed the course of history, became the subject of a famous poem, more on that later, Giselle, and became and inspired many generations of American patriots. That word, patriot, means something special here in Massachusetts. And I'm not just talking about Foxborough. Tomorrow's Patriots Day, when we honor and remember the heroes who fought the war for independence. But it's also a day to honor and celebrate what it means to be a patriot throughout our nation's history. Among the definitions in the Oxford English Dictionary for patriot is this: a person actively opposing enemy forces occupying his or her country, a member of a resistance movement, a freedom fighter, originally used for those who opposed and fought the British in the American War of Independence. It's not all that surprising to read that in Britain at the time, patriot was used as a slur. But for the colonists, it was worn as a badge of honor. We hold these first patriots in high regard, not just for their actions in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds against the world's most formidable foe, but because their values, their faith, and their spirit still lives on in the souls of everyone who calls themselves an American. When I think of Paul Revere and the other original patriots, certain words come to mind. Bravery, courage, commitment, passion, camaraderie, teamwork, selflessness. And many say Massachusetts is the birthplace of American liberty because it all began in Lexington, where Paul Revere witnessed the battle on Lexington Green, and I am certainly among them. And in fact, the sons and daughters of those who gave birth to this great nation have continued to champion liberty and fight for freedom throughout the 19th, 20th, and 21st centuries. In 1831, America's first abolitionist newspaper, The Liberator, began publishing in Boston by William Lloyd Garrison. In 1850, the first National Women's Rights Convention convened in Worcester, Massachusetts. In 1866, the General Court of Massachusetts swore in their first African-American legislators. In 1877, Boston University student Helen McGill White became the first woman in the United States to earn a PhD. In 1925, Edith Norris Rogers was the first woman elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. In 1966, Edward W. Brooke, a Republican, became the first African American to be popularly elected to the United States Senate. In 2003, Massachusetts became the first state to recognize marriage equality. And just over 10 years ago, almost to this day, in 2006, Massachusetts set the example for the nation by enacting universal health care coverage. Each of these milestones, and many, many more, were secured by men and women who carried on the tradition laid before them by those who put themselves on the line 241 years ago. They weren't doing it to make the history books. They were simply doing it for respect. And those that came after them to live up to the legacy and the progress of the vision of those who came before them. Now, the blazing of these paths forward should make anyone who calls Massachusetts home proud to be a Bay Stater. And these stories from our history attest to the fact that patriots need only be those who bear arms. However, without those willing to pay the ultimate price and make the ultimate sacrifice, people like Paul Revere and William Tawes, the opportunities for us all to be successful would be greatly diminished. Last September, Boston played host to the Medal of Honor Society. Patriotic songs were played, the red carpet was rolled out, and Black Hawk helicopters landed on Boston Common. Being in the presence of so many American heroes and patriots would leave anybody awestruck, including the Governor of the Commonwealth of Mass. There's no greater honor this nation can bestow on one of its citizens, and each of them represents the best America has to offer. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts has a proud tradition of military service. Hundreds of thousands of our fellow men and women have served, and 263 medals of honor are accredited to Massachusetts soldiers, half of which were awarded for action during the Civil War. For example, after winning his freedom to serve under President Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, I knew I was going to fall over that one. William Carney of New Bedford was the first African American to receive the Medal of Honor. He was honored for his bravery during the Union Army's assault on Fort Wagner in South Carolina. Kearny saw the flag bearer fall as they charged the fort, and he grabbed the flag and charged toward the head of the line. Despite being shot 4 times during the siege, he never let the flag touch the ground. Afterward, he said, as almost all Medal of Honor recipients do, that he was simply doing his job. But the person on either side of him would have done if it had come to them. During World War II, Medal of Honor recipient and First Lieutenant John Fox, who called Rockland his home, was a member of the segregated 92nd Infantry Division. On the day after Christmas in 1944 in a small Italian village, Lieutenant Fox ordered defensive artillery fire closer and closer to his position as German soldiers made their way through the streets. He finally called for it to rain down on its own coordinates. Later, when a counterattack retook the position from the Germans, Lieutenant Fox's body was found, surrounded by the bodies of approximately 100 German soldiers. During Korea, Tom Hudner, who grew up in Fall River, received his Medal of Honor for actions in trying to save the life of his wingman, Ensign Jesse Brown. In an attempt to save Brown from his burning aircraft, Hudner intentionally crash-landed his own aircraft on a snowy mountainside in freezing temperatures. Furiously, he worked for hours to try to rescue Brown and remove him from the cockpit of his downed aircraft. He couldn't do it. But in the second act, patriotism and generosity, Tom gave the check that he received from the city of Fall River to recognize and honor his bravery to Jesse's widow, and she used it to pay for their children's college educations. Now Tom now lives in Concord, where 3,800 patriots fought, 50 died, and 39 were wounded in that first battle in 1775. And just about 10 years ago, in 2006, Medal of Honor recipient First Sergeant Jared Monty, also of Fall River, ran straight into a barrage of rocket-propelled grenade and automatic weapons fire in the mountains of the Nuristan province in Afghanistan, because one of his boys was wounded and exposed to the enemy. He was forced back 3 times by enemy fire, but each time he tried again to reach his fallen friend. With just an arm's length between Sergeant Monty and his fallen comrade, he lost his life to a rocket-propelled grenade. The Baker family lives on Monument Ave in Swampscott. We picked the street because we liked the house. Simple as that. It was only after we moved in that we realized the stories that were just outside, along the length of the street's grassy boulevard. From the Civil War Memorial down by Kings Beach, through 2 world wars to the current war on terror, the men and the women from Swampscott who fought and those who died in service of this country are etched on one memorial after another. The names, even the ones from the wars and battles long gone by, are familiar ones to me. I know these families. They are the people who for generations have called our little town by the sea their home, and when duty called, went off to war. Now around the corner, in front of the library, is our Revolutionary War Memorial, also known as the Ramsdell Memorial. This boulder and bronze plaque memorializes one of the first soldiers to die at the Battle of Lexington, Abednego Ramsdell. He was from that part of Lynn, which eventually became Swampscott, and the memorial is located near the site of his home. Ramsdell was Swampscott's first patriot. There for the battles that took place 241 years ago, hours after Paul Revere sounded the alarm. When he learned of the British march to Concord from his father, who had encountered a rival like Revere, he grabbed his musket and a ration of bread and immediately started in that direction with a friend. He would lose his life that day in the cause of liberty. He was 25 years old, and one of 50 who died that day. Another child of Swampscott, Jennifer Harris, lost her life in 2007 when her helicopter went down in Iraq. In her hometown, she was a community leader who volunteered at the local hospital and led others by example. She attended the U.S. Naval Academy, became an expert helicopter pilot, and was flying her final mission after 3 tours of duty, a flight she didn't have to take but did so anyway, when her bird was shot down by an RPG. Jennifer Harris was the first servicewoman from Massachusetts to be killed in the Iraq War. Her image, along with Jared Reynolds, another child of Swampscott who joined the service in the aftermath of 9/11 and was killed by an IED in Iraq, is on display in the main lobby at Swampscott High School. It serves as a reminder to us all about heroism, sacrifice, service, and yes, patriotism. And at this time of year, we should not forget there are heroic acts that take place around us all the time that might not get the attention they deserve. As everyone here knows, in 2013, terror erupted on Boylston Street as 2 pressure cooker bombs exploded within seconds of one another. 3 people died instantly: Martin Richard, Crystal Campbell, and Lindsay Little. 264 were injured, many with grievous, life-threatening trauma, and yet, every single one survived. They survived in large part because first responders and everyday citizens leapt into the smoke and the chaos to help them with a selflessness that was hardwired to their hearts and buried deep within their souls. No one who rushed into the chaos of Boylston Street was looking to make history. They were just trying to help someone who needed them. And when Captain John Pulling did his friend Paul Revere a favor by hanging those 2 lanterns in this church steeple 241 years ago, he wasn't looking to make history either. He was just trying to help his friends. And when we all look up at that steeple in this church tonight, and we see those 2 lanterns again, let those lights serve as a statement to all our patriots, those immortalized in bronze, and those silently revered, those who came long before us, and those who walk among us now, those who advocate for liberty with their voices, and those who defend it with their lives. That we will never forget them, and we honor their heroism and their example, because the gift they give is precious, and the price too many pay on our behalf is far too high. Thank you very much, and God bless.